It's my honor and privilege to welcome all Karmayogis to this edition of Karmayogi Talks, wherein we have none other than Mr. Brad Smith, President and Vice Chairman of Microsoft Corporation, who is here to share his thoughts with regard to responsible AI and how artificial intelligence and emerging technologies can make a difference to the way we administer programs, we implement projects, we offer benefits to citizens, and in what ways it can transform governance in a country like India. Karmayogi Talks, as you know, is an endeavor of I Got Karmayogi platform under the program Mission Karmayogi, wherein we get policy practitioners, technology experts, and people who have made a difference to lives of people to come and share their thoughts on various topical issues. So for this edition of Karmayogi Talks, we have Mr. Brad Smith. I'm extremely grateful for you to having spared time from your busy schedule for this session, and I welcome you to for this interaction today.
Well, thank you. Thanks to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so today's times are very exciting. In fact, 2 days back, we had India launching its space mission, the Chandrayaan-3, and the advances that are happening in the field of technology, whether it's a deep tech mission that we have, the semiconductor manufacturing that is happening, or the whole story about digital public infrastructure that we have been able to build to kind of transform the way citizens interact with the government, they access public services. Technology has been playing a big role. And as we move forward and we see technology like artificial intelligence impacting every sector in which we operate in, what do you think in what ways AI can impact the way we implement such digital projects?
Well, it is an extraordinary decade for India and for technology. I think that's what you just captured. And in a sense, I will bet that none of the things that you just mentioned would have been possible without software, including having something land on the moon. And in many ways, I think AI is part of the next generation of software. Any software that exists today will probably be infused with greater AI capabilities. So think about it first like that. And then second, I think for everyone who is listening or watching, it can change the way we work, whether it's as simple as what you use a search engine for to find something that you're looking for, to how we'll work literally at work, how we'll write, how we'll convert documents, how we'll explore, how we'll create. So it will ultimately, I think, impact us in almost every respect. A decade from now, we'll take it all for granted. Right now, it's very new.
So like when we look at India and we look at potential applications for artificial intelligence in helping people access services, one initiative that we have been working about it and about which Mr. Satya Nadella has also been talking about has been the Bhashini project, in which we used AI for voice enabled and access to services in multiple Indian languages. So language technologies, NLP has been one application of AI which is really has a lot of scope in India. Similarly, there have been solutions which have been talked about in healthcare, agriculture, education. So in what ways you think India can leverage the power of AI for emerging from, for it being able to provide better access to citizens?
Well, I would very much build on what you just described. We've talked literally with people around the world about some of the examples that you just talked about. Any time today that a citizen needs help from somebody who works in the government, there is an opportunity to use AI to make that easier. In some respects, it can be a service that is opened up directly to the citizen, as you described. You don't actually even need to be literate. You don't need to speak the same language. You can use AI as a layer to interpret and then to go find the information and bring it back to you. But I also think it's interesting to think about what it can mean for people in government. If you're helping somebody, you can use this, it should be possible to put it to work to help you find information more quickly. And this will require the use of AI within government systems. It will mean taking AI models like GPT-4 and training them on the government's data set. But ultimately, I think one of the most exciting things about it is that people who work with citizens in, say, the government should then be able to focus more on connecting with the individual they're trying to help than chasing the information and trying to find it. That's what we're seeing in all kinds of enterprises, not just government, but say banks or retail companies. I see it in every country. People who work with other people are able to work better. They find their jobs more rewarding. That's one of the most interesting things I'm finding, is that if you can find an answer faster, you can focus on the person you're trying to help.
Interesting. And in fact, I was going through the blog and the foreword that you read recently about on the Microsoft website, in which you describe the 5 principles, the 5-point blueprint for governing AI. And you also gave some use cases for India, and you said that what India can do. So would you like to elaborate on the 5-point framework that you talk about there?
Yes, I mean, one of the things we're saying is we're not starting from scratch. Let's look in each country about rules that we have in place today. Certainly here in India, there's a new privacy law. That's just one example. Let's use the laws we have. Let's use the standards organizations we have, and let's build on them. Second, let's address what in some places is one of the foremost concerns that people have. They worry that AI will not remain under human control. Let's put in place, as we call it, safety brakes. Anytime AI is going to be used to control critical infrastructure, if it's going to be used to manage the electrical grid, if it's going to be used to manage the water supply, let's put in place the kinds of systems that we have for other technologies where things can go wrong. If there's an elevator, it has a safety brake. Electricity has a circuit breaker. Let's put these in place. Let's put them in place for government-operated systems. Let's put them in place under the law and regulation for systems that are run by the private sector. And then let's build on this. We have other ideas around the kinds of regulatory infrastructure that we think would make the most sense, how we regulate these new models that are emerging, and perhaps above all, how we partner with the public and private sector to address the kinds of concerns that people have. We don't want to see AI create deep fakes that are going to be used to undermine democracy, undermine elections, but it will require new collaboration between the tech sector, businesses, NGOs, and government to combat that.
Interesting. And I was just also wondering, like when we are thinking about AI strategy in India, very often we see that we do as a country have a large strength as far as when it concerns AI trained workforce, the software coders, writers. We have traditionally been the back office of the software industry, if we can say, like our engineers are writing code for almost every project across the world. And we also have a very vibrant startup ecosystem, AI companies which are working on that. Where we probably need to put more effort is probably in the field of research and compute. And in today's world, when we have companies like OpenAI and all who have access to much bigger compute and much compute infrastructure, how do we as a country, what we can do to provide better access to such kind of infrastructure for our researchers and startups?
Well, I think that's a very interesting question, and I would offer 2 or 3 ideas. First, larger compute infrastructure is coming to India. It already has been coming. Certainly a company like Microsoft, we have been investing in multiple large data centers around India. That will continue. And so I think that here in India, people will find that kind of resource available. Second, I think there's this very specific question that I find in many capitals around the world, which is how to make that kind of computational infrastructure available for academic research, for people who are in universities, people who are at the forefront of different fields of science. And we haven't yet seen a clear answer emerge. I think that in some ways, there may be some countries that are interested in trying to create a broad computational infrastructure so the whole research community and universities can say access it. That may mean being able to contract with private companies. It may mean building the data center for the universities themselves by the government. But that is a key area, and especially, I mean, my gosh, just think about the example. India, I think today is at the forefront of so much technological innovation. You look at the South Pole of the moon and there you see it. And so I think it's a vital time to think about how to sustain not just incredible innovation, but real global leadership in spaces like that.
One other key challenge that we always face and we always hear about is future of work. Like with AI coming in, and in fact one startup founder the other day was telling me that the job of content writers will go extinct, and then he says that I'm using AI tools to do the job which 5 content writers were doing. So that brings in the whole requirement of reskilling, upskilling and all. So in what ways countries like India, especially when you have so much of reliance on software coders and low value software coders, if their jobs start getting challenged by ChatGPT and OpenAI, what as a nation we should think of doing to address this kind of issue?
I think the most important thing, whether you're talking about the nation or the government or an individual, is figure out how to use this in your job. Make yourself smarter by being among the first to figure out how to use it. There's a story that people like to tell about me. I became a lawyer, feels like a long time ago now, but it was in the 1980s. And my very first job offer was to go work at a law firm. It was exactly the law firm where I wanted to go work. And I did something that in hindsight almost surprises me. I said to it was the leading law firm in Washington, D.C., I will accept your offer only if you will give me a personal computer that I can have on my desk. And they said, why would you want a PC? We have secretaries, they have computers, you write on a legal pad, they'll type it up for you. And I said, well, I can write faster and I can write better if I use a computer. And so I had to go up to the firm's management committee. Thankfully, they said, yes, I could have it. And in the 80s and 90s, you would hear in workplaces people talk about power users. They were the ones who were the best users of computers. They learned how to use word processing software. They learned how to use email. This is going to be very similar. So what does that mean? Number one, start using it. See, right now everybody's talking about it, not everybody's using it. So go to the website for ChatGPT, go to the website for Bing.com, our search engine. It's all free. Go to the chat feature. Just start asking questions. Start seeing how it works. Make yourself smarter. It's not that hard. You just have to practice a little bit. But then I think this goes to where your question really points. Ultimately, this isn't just a technology skill, because the truth is what you use AI for is to help you reason, to help you write, and you realize that you don't stop thinking. You instead learn how to think with this additional tool. That's why at Microsoft we call all of our services co-pilots. We had this big debate, what should we call this? And it was actually Satya Nadella who said, this isn't an answer engine for the search space, it's a co-pilot. We need people to continue thinking. This is to help people think better. And we'll find in the skilling space, this is where technology skills meet the liberal arts. For anybody who learned the humanities or learned the social science, you will find that what you've learned is tremendously beneficial. You just connect it with this additional technology skill and you'll figure out how to put them together.
Yes, in fact, that's what many people say, that just like calculators help solve mathematical problems, similarly a tool like ChatGPT makes things easier when you are composing and writing. And in fact, I've come across many government servants who have started using it in their day-to-day work for drafting mundane letters or simple communications, wherein the prompt that you gave becomes very, very important, to the extent that prompt engineering is becoming a very interesting field of study.
Absolutely. And what is prompt engineering? You may be asking that if you're not familiar with it and you're watching this. And basically, prompt engineering is really just writing in the question or writing in the command. I might, for example, take a PowerPoint deck that I have and I open up Microsoft Word and the prompt I write in is, create a 1,000 word concept paper based on these 12 slides. Or I might do the opposite. I might take a Word document and go to PowerPoint and say, create a 10-point PowerPoint deck. That's what a prompt is. Now, you can tell that we're talking about a technology project because people basically took this concept and called it engineering, prompt engineering. I look at it and I say, you know what that is? That's called asking better questions. And that's a skill that we all have to some degree. It's a skill that we all can develop further. And I think when we put it in those terms, what you really realize is that this is something that sort of speaks to all of us, and that's a good thing.
In fact, on the I Got Karmayogi platform, we do have a course on generative AI and ChatGPT, and of course, some of the most popular, amongst top 10 courses, we have 2 courses from Microsoft, and that include Office and Excel. very basic, because that's what everyone uses, the larger majority in the government, and we do that. So maybe we should get in touch with your team and think of building a course in partnership with you or OpenAI on prompt engineering.
Absolutely. And just take the example of Excel, because Microsoft Excel, people know it's a great spreadsheet product. If you work in, say, government finance or in private sector finance, people may well know how to use its many features. I use it, but I don't know its many features. I wish I could make it do the things that other people can make it do. This is where you will see our Copilot completely revolutionize this. I don't need to know how to make it do things. I just need to describe what I want it to do. And there will be, I think, a new course on precisely that. And the exciting thing from my vantage point is it's going to be a lot easier than the current course on how to use Excel.
Exactly. And one example that I can give is that Microsoft Word, like very often when I would write a long document, a 20-page document and all, one of the struggles that I always had, that I would want every new paragraph to come on a new page. And in the formatting, I will keep on moving up and down, and every time something I add or something I subtract, the whole thing I have to do over and over again. And when I did that Microsoft Word course on IGOT, I found that Microsoft actually had a command for doing that. So that I don't have to do it again and again. You just put that command, it automatically formats it that way. So similarly, maybe with there can be a prompt and there can be an AI tool which you just say that I want my document to look like this, and then it will deliver that. So
I'll give you another example that I find fascinating. One of the individuals at Microsoft who works directly for me is a brilliant data scientist. He grew up in Uruguay. He's a native Spanish speaker. So English is not his first language. And he would always worry about his emails that they were not perfect English, and they were not, and that was okay. Brilliant data scientist. Now, when he writes an email, before he presses send, he goes to Copilot and he says, correct my grammar and put it in better English. He now sends me the best written emails I get. And so I think this is just a great example of how we can start to use this as a tool to make ourselves more effective.
in fact, while all this is great and we can mean a lot of difference to the way we work and better drafted letters, better drafted emails, no grammar mistakes and all, but at the same time there can be applications of AI which do not fall under the ethical or the responsible way. And given the work that you have done on responsible AI, what do you think? And in fact, the book also that you wrote, The Tools and Weapons, where you mention that technology has the potential to be a tool or a weapon, which applies to almost all kinds of technology, whether it's nuclear or otherwise. So in what ways you should think that countries should look at responsible AI, regulating responsible AI, what all nations should think of doing?
It really does require a sophisticated approach. This has become a discipline. We started at Microsoft 7 years ago. We started by articulating principles: protect privacy, protect security, avoid bias. Those are just 3 of the 6 principles that we have. And then over time, we've had to do work to make that real. We incorporated that into a policy that we created. We then go train our engineers. We create tools. We do testing so that when we're going to create a service, before it's launched, we have specific testing. We have developed red teams that analyze things. There's a variety of measures. And one reason I mention all of this is because this will become important for every organization that is developing an AI system or service and then deploying it. So for the government, there will be AI systems that go back to citizen services. So just as there is an IT section that may be creating software for that today, there will be AI infused in that. And this too will become a discipline: responsible AI, or safe and secure AI. And this will be another area that people who are working in that field will really need to master.
In fact, India is actually this year the chair of the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence also, and we have the GPA Summit scheduled in the month of December. And in the run-up to the GPA Summit, the meetings that we have had with various member countries, and there's a lot of talk with regard to bringing around global consensus with regard to AI regulations. UK is proposing the AI Safety Summit. So you think that it does regulating AI or trying to create a framework for ethical and responsible AI, do we need to develop a kind of a code of conduct globally which can be adopted from countries across, or should we just allow innovation and regulation to go as it's going now?
I think that we will see a level of global coordination emerge. And I think there's two things perhaps worth thinking about. One is how to do that on sort of a voluntary basis. There's an initiative that has emerged that is bringing together the G7 plus India and Indonesia to create a voluntary code of conduct that it would at least apply to, say, the major companies that are working in that space. But second, I think this is a time when we need to start to imagine the global governance system for the future. And I think one of the best ways to imagine what a future for AI might look like is to look at the technologies we have around the world today and borrow from different models. We're doing a lot of this work at Microsoft. We're asking, what are the different industries, the technology fields, what can we learn from? The favorite one I have at the moment is really commercial aviation. Because we all fly on planes, we rely on them, and we rely on them to be safe. And we take off in a plane in one country and we land in another country, it's the same plane. And fundamentally, the way that system works is almost three layers that fit together. There are industry standards that define the safety practices for, say, the manufacturers of commercial aircraft. There is then a layer of national law and regulation. And then at the top, there is global regulation. There's what's called the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO. It was created in 1944. So just think, it's worked and it's gotten better and better over several decades. And so one of the things we're really trying to do is just ask ourselves, what are the features? What are the best features that apply here? And I actually think that when you consider something like the UK AI Safety Summit in November, one of the things I hope everyone can do is not just rush to say, what should we do for AI? This is an important time to ask, what can we learn? What might be applicable? Let's reason by analogy before coming up with our own conclusion.
Yeah, this can be something similar to the DPI repository that we are working on, like globally for the digital public infrastructure repository with the G20 just agreed upon in the digital economy working group. So maybe we can think of building up AI tested solutions or AI repository or solutions wherein people can take it up and be sure that these are trusted solutions which measure well on the metrics of being ethical and responsible.
And what I would say, and I maybe this is almost a concluding thought, India has a not just important, but maybe a unique role to play in this global conversation. Because India has so much to offer. First, it has not just the largest population in the world, even more so the largest part of the global population of working age, between, say, the age of 20 and 64. It has the largest number of engineers that are being added to this economy every year, engineers that already serve the world. But there's another thing that I think India can bring to bear, and it's where you started. Look at the India stack, look at the digital public infrastructure, look at all the technology advances. And India is a country that has not lost sight of responsibility and guardrails, but it is a country that is driving forward the pace of innovation, quite possibly as fast as any other country in the world. So if you can harness those ideas, if people in this government and people across India can take these ideas and contribute it, I think it will help create a broader, richer, ultimately more constructive global conversation about where the future of AI should go.
Thank you. That was a great thought to conclude. And I would just urge that what Brad just mentioned about what India can do does apply to all of us, all government servants, all Karmayogis who are watching this. How do we imbibe the best of the technology and how do we use it for working towards meeting the objectives, the national aspirations of trying to make India the developed countries in the days to come. So thank you, Brad, for giving your time. It is indeed a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.